Hello, everyone. Welcome to CoffeeBreak YXE. I'm your host, Ian Roach. Thanks for watching. Today is Tuesday, November 30th, 2021. Thanks for being here. We really appreciate it. Our guest this morning is Shane Partridge. He's been a long-time community advocate and resident of Saskatoon's Pleasant Hill neighborhood. We're going to chat with him about the Saskatoon's homelessness crisis. But before we bring him in, I want to remind you that if you have any questions for Mr. Partridge or myself, please ask them in the comments and we'll try and get them on air as soon as we can. Also, if you have not already done so, please like or subscribe to our various social media channels. It really helps us a lot. The more viewers we have, the more we are profitable someday. And hopefully that day comes sooner rather than later. All right, without any further ado, our guest, as I mentioned, is Shane Partridge, community advocate, resident of Pleasant Hill. Welcome, Shane.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. Maybe the place to start is can you share a bit about yourself? A bit about your past? You've worn so many hats. So for our viewers, can you just share with us what you've done in the past and what you're doing now?
Yeah, for sure. So in the past, I was involved pretty heavy in street life. I had some addictions issues and stuff going on. And I spent a lot of my early years, teenage and early adult years on the streets and, all that sort of stuff. And then, I ran into an organization. I found myself in the hospital and I was really sick from alcohol and stuff. And I was referred to this organization that named Straight Up in the community of Pleasant Hill here. And, they really helped me with my recovery and turning my life around, I guess. And once I had enough sobriety and some clean time under my belt, I felt like I had enough in me to give back to the community a little bit. And so that's when I started pursuing that avenue. I got involved, first with the community association, and then I started seeing the opportunity to really, change the landscape for folks that were on the street and having a rough life, similar to what I had there. And I got involved in politics and some of the civic initiatives that are happening in Saskatoon as well. And that's where I'm at today is, I'm a constituency assistant for an MLA, and I work at our emergency youth shelter in Saskatoon at the White Buffalo Youth Lodge.
I think we encapsulated a lot of time in there. So how long have you been doing kind of the advocacy work? Is it years, decades? Oh, and I believe have a bit of freezing issue with our guests. So I'm going to go like this and I'll keep an eye on them. Again, thank you so much for watching CoffeeBreak YXE. We're having a bit of difficulty with Shane's internet connection. As soon as we get that back, I think it might be back now. I'm going to bring him back into the studio and we'll take a look here. Shane, are you with us? No, I think we have a bit of freezing issue still. So you have to stare at me a bit. Coming up later today, as we try and sort this out, I will share with you, coming up right after the show is CoffeeBreak YXE. That's what you're watching now. The next show after this is a show called Let's Chat with Nazreen Essa, and that's on at 11 a.m. coming up right after Coffee Break, and that show is in Arabic. And I think Shane is moving, or is he frozen? Can you give me a wave, Shane, if you're okay? Yeah, it looks like he's good. Okay, let's bring him back in. Shane, can you hear me now?
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know why.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Maybe we need to reach out to the government and get better internet connection in offices and things. Yeah, so you went through a lot of history. I'm just trying to get a sense. Was that 5 years ago that you kind of had the incident that set you on a different path? Is it a decade ago or?
It was actually it's about 10 years ago now. I spent the majority of my life in addictions and stuff. My teenage years and my early adult years were the years that I spent on the street there. And it was about 10 years ago now that I started working on changing my life around.
And not only with the White Buffalo Youth Lodge, the work you're doing now, you've had various positions through the time. I think EGADS, does that make sense?
Well, yeah, so with Straight Up, when I first got involved with them, once I was well on my healing journey, and I had gotten some sobriety underneath me. I started actually working for Straight Up, and advocated for a provincial gang strategy, something that would offer uh, men and women like me who were trying to change their life around and stuff, an avenue to do that, instead of hitting the brick walls like we were when we were trying to reach out and receive help. And that started, the provincial gang strategy. We had a big forum that was attended by over 100 communities from the top to the bottom of the province, and then that grew into the community intervention model that the government of Saskatchewan is using these days.
Okay, before we go anywhere, I just want to mention that Jennifer Hackett, one of our longtime loyal viewers, says good morning to us. Good morning, Jennifer. Thanks so much for watching. So Shane, anecdotally, I live in Caswell, you're in Pleasant Hill. Anecdotally, from my perspective, I'm observing a lot more homelessness this summer, this fall, and the beginning of winter. What are you seeing as you're out on the streets?
Yeah, it's bizarre this year. The amount of people that are out on the street, and the amount of people that our social services programs just are not working for. With the changes to the SIS program, where people were receiving their full benefits and were expected to pay rent and their utilities and stuff like that all on their own. And I mean, we're only talking about like $500 a month that they're having to use to pay this stuff off with. And it just wasn't working. I know at the White Buffalo Youth Lodge, we're full every night in the shelter. The Lighthouse is full every night. The Salvation Army is full every night. And there's still people sleeping on the streets. Just recently, the Saskatoon Tribal Council here is opening up a 50-bed 24-hour shelter, and we're anticipating that.
And once again, it appears that we have some connectivity issues with Shane. So Shane, if you're coming back, just give me a wave. I'll keep an eye out for you. Other shows on today, 6 p.m. We're really excited. YXE Sports Podcast is on tonight at 6 p.m. With Matt Morrison. His father, Ray Morrison, will be joining us for that show. Ray is currently, I believe, in Quebec City, and he's about to do play-by-play for the Vanier Cup. U of S Huskies football, men's football, has made it to the Vanier Cup. And with luck, not with luck, but the game is this Saturday. So we're going to do a preview of that. And Ray's going to talk about his new position with huskyfan.ca and talk about how you can listen to the game on Husky Fan. That is coming up tonight at 6 p.m. on YXE Sports Podcast. Let's see, how are we doing? And it looks like you're back.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on here. I keep getting cut off from you guys.
That's okay. That's okay. It's the beauty of live television, and we'll just roll with the punches there. And actually, I guess we need to promote some other shows on the network, so that's good. So where were we? We were talking about tribal councils coming online with a 50-bed shelter.
Yeah, it was a 50-bed shelter running 24 hours a day, and we anticipate that to be full as well. I don't. These are all band-aid solutions. They're sort of to the last step that we can take to stop folks from freezing to death. They're by no means solutions to the problem.
There's a lot to unpack there, but first, is there a timeline for the Saskatoon Tribal Council shelter? I knew they're working on it, and last I heard they're looking for a location. But is that almost open soon, or what's the timeline?
I'm not entirely sure what the timeline is, or what they've secured for a spot for the shelter.
Let's go back to the changes to the government assistance, and if you can unpack that a bit for me.
So
our viewers.
Yeah, the changes to the social assistance program from the social assistance program, where people used to have their rent and their utilities paid for directly by the government, by social services, and when that changed, the benefit structure changed, and people were receiving lump sum benefits and were expected to pay for their utilities and rent and stuff like that, all on their own accord. But that just wasn't working, because with $500 a month, things come up, and all of a sudden you don't have the money to pay for your rent at the end of the month. You're now out on the street. Landlords in town, they've stopped renting as frequently and as easily to folks that are on social assistance, because they know the problems that are happening in that program. So it's really failing everybody all around, landlords right through to the people who are on the program.
Okay, and I think there's a couple weeks ago, that the government said they kind of changed course. Did they really change course, that they're going to actually start paying landlords directly, or is it just in certain cases?
Only in certain cases. So for them to do that, people have to actually reach out to the government and just say, hey, I want my benefits paid directly to my landlord. That, or folks that had, they were called trustees before, who helped individuals manage their finances. Those folks with the trustees and stuff will be able to get their utilities and rent and stuff delivered directly to the suppliers, their landlords, and to the utility companies.
You'd mentioned that they have to reach out to the government. Now, I've also heard the other thing that has happened is that they've gone to a central call center or something like that, or service desk.
Yeah. So now what has happened, instead of having individualized support workers that, you get to establish relationships with, and you get to work with a little bit and learn about each other, some mutuality in there. Now it's just generalized call centers where people phone in to a call center, and they could wait on hold for an hour or more before they get to talk to somebody in the call center who doesn't really necessarily know what's going on with their file or their case, and is just an operator in a call center.
You've mentioned $500 a couple of times. I actually did a bit of internet research online trying to figure out how much social assistance somebody like myself would get if I needed it. And I can't quite get it. It seems fuzzy. Can you shed some light on how much social assistance an individual can expect?
Offhand, I'm not entirely sure. And I think that's it changes case by case as well, dependent on the needs of the individual applying for benefits.
Is it safe to say it's not enough?
It's far from enough. I mean, we're talking $500 or $600 here.
Okay.
I keep saying $500, but it's because it's very close to just that 500. It's 5 something or 6 something, I think, that they get.
So we have the change of the social assistance. Is there anything else that could be leading to this kind of sense that there is more of an issue this fall?
Drug abuse, fentanyl on our streets, the opioid crisis has really hit Saskatoon hard. And, advocates had said that this was coming years ago, and then we started seeing it and stuff. But now it's like it's exploded on our streets. Fentanyl is everywhere. It's hard to go anywhere in any of the core neighborhoods. Caswell, Pleasant Hill, Riversdale, King George, any of those areas, and not witness an overdose somewhere along on the street, which is really unfortunate. These are things that kids shouldn't be seeing. What justification makes it right for a 10-year-old child to know what an overdose looks like? And, I'm glad that they know and that they recognize it and they know how to stop it. But the steps that we took to get there, it's just not right in my books. These kids are waking up every day to homelessness, drug addiction, boarded up homes. It's not very healthy, and it gives them sort of a grim outlook on life. It doesn't allow for many aspirations or very, very high goals, right?
So I'm going to try and use some terminology for our viewers here. if the shelters, like I think you mentioned Band-Aid, but let's call shelters getting somebody immediate help now so they don't freeze. Let's call that downstream interventions.
Yeah.
How do we deal with this upstream so people don't fall into addictions and poverty? Because to me, it's almost like a cycle. The poverty and addictions and poverty, they go hand in hand. But
Yeah.
what do we do upstream to deal with this?
We need efficient housing support programs, housing support programs that work for the folks that they're trying to help instead of just working for the government. We need a cap on rent in our cities and towns. $600, $500 a month. You're lucky if you find a bachelor suite for that amount. You cannot find housing, and most oftentimes you're going to be stuck living at a shelter, paying rent at a shelter to stay there with that money. Some of the other things that we can do is having establishing relationships between the landlords and our government, and making some programs happen for affordable housing. That's the kicker right now is affordable housing, and then people using drugs and alcohol to essentially cope with being on the street. And we also need to have some alternatives for folks who need help, so that they can get help when they want it and when they require it, rather.
And it looks like we have a bit of connectivity issue again, and I'll just wait for Shane to reconnect. There seems to be 20 or 30 seconds. He'll be back. Coming up again tonight, we have 6 o'clock. We have YXE Sports Podcast on with Matt Morrison, talking about the lead up to the Vanier Cup. 7 o'clock is In Focus YXE, our game show. We show you a picture of somewhere around Saskatoon, and it's fuzzy at first, out of focus. It comes into focus, hence the name In Focus, and you can guess what you think it is in the comments. And if you're right, you get to brag that you got the right answer, and everybody who actually comments and during the game show will be entered for a chance to win a prize. That's on at 7 o'clock tonight with yours truly, Ian Roach, the host of that as well. I think Shane's back.
Yeah.
Shane, are you with us? Sorry, where were we? Where we get kind of going down the road of maybe assisted living for some individuals that need that kind of support?
Yeah, definitely. We need some assisted living. We need some more supports out there for people who are suffering from addictions issues and mental health related issues. There's really not a whole lot out there right now, especially in the way of mental health assistance with mental health supports. You either have the choice of going into Dubé if you can get in there, or seeing being on a waiting list for a private psychiatrist or psychologist, and maybe getting a chance to see one 6 months down the road. 6 months down the road isn't working for anybody. Wait lists aren't working for anybody. We need to beef up the supports that are there in the community, support those agencies that are doing that work, that have the boots on the ground right now, and quit trying to reinvent the wheel, per se, I guess.
Let's look at it this. So I try to formulate the question in my head, and it's a little complicated. Maybe it's not, but for me, it's complicated. But if somebody is struggling with addictions and they reach a point, looking at the history you shared with us about yourself, that you're in hospital and you kind of reach a point, I'm ready for help. Should that person have the supports immediately? Or because right now I understand if somebody has addictions and they decide, I'm ready, I need help, I need an intervention, it's going to take a while before they get that. Is that the case?
Yeah. So with addictions help and stuff, when somebody needs help, they need it then. They don't need it like 6 months down the road. That's part of the big struggle that we have right now in our communities, is we get folks who are in a spot where they're ready or willing to make a change in their life, but they don't have the opportunity for another 6 months. So a lot can happen in that 6 months, especially if you're homeless, or if you're really struggling and stuff. So we need to beef up the supports that we have in the province. We need to invest and nurture our treatment centers and the nonprofits in our communities that are providing these supports to individuals. We need to lift those agencies and organizations up and support them, and really aid and assist them in what they're doing for our community, rather than trying to reinvent the wheel per se and starting all over. We have these pieces in the community. It just takes some nurturing to allow them to do their job, I guess. Um, all these agencies and organizations and in the community, they're all struggling so hard and fighting for every last scrap of dollars that are available in funding. That's one of the major things that needs to change, is that we have to stop pitting these nonprofits and these organizations against one another. They're all competing for the same money. We need to be able to provide some a steady stream of funding to these organizations, that they're not having to compete for all the time, and that they're able to build some programs and services within their organizations that are really beneficial to the communities that they're serving, versus just applying for and obtaining these one-off grants for specialty projects, or some sort of a specialty program that the government decided to fund for the year.
So in the absence of I guess downstream funded interventions that work, are people falling through the cracks and becomes a criminal matter?
Yeah, so that's exactly it. People are falling through the cracks. Our justice system is becoming overloaded with people who frankly shouldn't be there. They shouldn't be in the justice system. They may have done something wrong to lead them there, but why was that? What caused that to happen? And we need to start addressing those things upstream a little bit, before they enter the justice system and clog up our system. We're spending millions of dollars on a remand center to house more inmates, instead of spending all that money on remand, on programs and places to lock people up and to put them away so they're off the street. We need to be able to provide supports for those individuals to not wind up there in the first place. The other thing that the government isn't doing is providing supports for individuals that are coming out of the justice system. You get released from the correctional center and you're on your own. I mean, you got to find your own way home. You got to try and find some new clothes outside of your jail wear and everything. We just need to be able. We need to support these folks more than what we're doing, in a purposeful way, not just as an afterthought.
We're talking around about homelessness, the homelessness crisis, but certainly all these other things that come around it. It's all part and parcel of it. One thing that came out in a meeting I was in is that the city actually has, I think the city's the right organization, some inventory of empty accommodation that's available. I can't remember the exact number. There was a certain dozens that were available, some others that needed repairs. But I kind of went on the website to see what it's like, and it really hard for a lot of individuals to actually qualify for that kind of housing. Is that your sense that that's appropriate housing for the people that we're seeing in the streets right now?
Yeah. So, I mean, our housing programs drastically need to change. That's part of what's causing so much of our homelessness issue right now. We have inaccessible housing for folks that really need it. With the changes to the social assistance programs and stuff, it has really soured landlords, the taste that landlords have for people who are on social assistance, because they know that this is going to be a struggle, because these people are fighting all the time trying to get their benefits from social assistance. All these houses that are sitting empty, the Sask Housing Authority has sitting empty in all of our communities. These are easy fixes. These are things that we can implement in our communities and make a difference with. Um, it's just unfortunate that our current, our current government isn't really seeing those solutions as much as the community has. But
Okay, let's talk about individuals like myself or other individuals in Saskatoon. If we want to help somehow, what can we do? Is there an organization we can give money to? Is there volunteer opportunities to help with more of the downstream? Or maybe we can start there as downstream solutions that people like myself or other viewers can help with, and then maybe we'll talk about some of the upstream stuff after.
yeah, so yeah, volunteering is a great way to give back, to support your community, to be involved. Now, as far as us as community members, um, donating is a good thing. Organizations are always in need of money. One of the things that we can do to curb crime, prevent, or work a little bit on our own properties is keeping an eye out for one another. In our communities, when we see, like, keep an eye open in your community. When you see somebody that's in your community that's struggling, make that phone call. Call the community resource officers with the Saskatoon City Police and get them out there talking to that person. And in doing that, we're going to be saving ourselves dollars in property crime and everything else in our community as well. So it pays off for us to look out for one another.
Anything we can do upstream? Is there any advocacy work that we should be doing? Should we be reaching out to people to say this is what we think?
Advocacy work and upstream work, yes. We need to, everybody needs to get a hold of their elected officials, let them know that we need to invest in quality, like care for homeless individuals, people without a fixed residence or a fixed address. We need to get some sustained funding in place for shelters rather than, like I said, having these organizations apply for and compete with each other over, these little grant dollars that are available in the community. We need to have some sustainable funding for them to operate so that they can plan, and look to the future in some of their projects and stuff instead of just making do with what they have today. We need to, as a community, collectively advocate for better addictions supports in our community and across the province. Right now, with the wait lists, people are waiting 6 months to get into a treatment facility. A lot of things can happen in 6 months. People can die in 6 months. People can die in a matter of days. And with fentanyl and some of the drugs that are out on the street these days, we need to be able to have guaranteed solutions for those who are wanting a way out instead of, okay, now somebody approaches you, says, I'm done with this life. I want to make a change. Okay, so now you have 6 months worth of fighting ahead of you to be able to try and get into a treatment facility that may or may not suit your needs, right? We really need to collectively advocate as communities to support these agencies and organizations that are doing this work in our communities, and advocate for sustained funding for them to continue doing that work. And so, like I said, that they can be able to plan for the future instead of just being reactionary all the time.
Mm-hmm. Relatively speaking, we've been fortunate, I think, this fall and as we get into winter, that it hasn't been as cold as it could be this time of year, but it's coming for us.
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to be a bad winter? What's the immediate need as the temperature starts getting more and more below zero? What do you think we're going to see?
So it's already a bad winter. Mm-hmm. I would the cold weather strategy that happens when the temperatures kick in the -20s, -30s and stuff, that saves people. And it gets them in off the street. When we don't have the cold weather strategy kick in Saskatoon and people are out on the street in -15, -10 degree weather. That's the killer. That's where people get wet. That's where people get cold. And that's where we lose folks on the street. Yes, we've had a mild winter this far, a mild fall. But as far as life on the street is concerned, it's been very difficult. And there isn't near as many supports out there on the street as there would be if it was -30.
Shane, any final thoughts as we wrap up the show?
My final thought would be to, keep an eye out for each other. Support your community by supporting each other, keeping an eye out for one another, and helping those folks that you see or that you hear or that you know of may be struggling. You could be saving lives just by spending 10 minutes or 5 minutes with these folks and seeing what they really need. People who are homeless or who are struggling with addictions issues, they look just like you and I. They're not always that person huddled in the corner in the alley. They do look just like you and I. And we need to keep that in mind, that nobody is better or lesser than one another, and that we're all in this together, and we need to help one another.
Shane, thank you so much for being part of the show. Before you go, Jennifer's been watching. She says, thank you for shedding light on such an important subject. Jennifer, thank you for watching, and thank you for the comment. Can we have you on again sometime in the near future?
I'm sorry, you cut out?
Oh, sorry. Okay. Jane, well, first, sorry, Jane. Jennifer mentions, thank you for shedding light on this important thing. Okay. We may be losing you. You look like you're back. Yeah. So comment from a viewer, Jennifer, shedding light on an important subject. Thank you for doing that. And Shane, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. Can we have you back sometime?
Absolutely. I'd love to be back. Thank you for having me. And look out for one another for sure. And that can mean a world of difference for everyone.
Thank you. Okay, we'll see you again. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
That's it for Coffee Break YXE for this Tuesday, November 30th. The other show that we haven't mentioned is 8 o'clock, Green Room YXE with Johnny Sinclair and Leslie Stanwyck. Their guest tonight is local musician Pete Oldridge. That's it for me. I'll be back next Tuesday at 10 a.m. with another show. I'll be back tonight if you're really excited to see me, 7 o'clock with our game show. Stay safe, and as Shane says, look out for each other out there.